Good about it.
All right. All right.
You got funny stories?
I do.
Oh, good. I'm excited about that.
Today, I am here to give
Can I
you the
pour the whiskey?
assurance
Please.
that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs
Do me
and gain
last.
traction and change the world, we have
Because I
got
wanna
to
be
take
first.
seriously our responsibilities as husbands
a
and
Catholic act.
fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then
The other
that
day,
something that our world
went
is
first in
desperately in need of
so
in
that
the
I
midst
could
of
be
this
last.
crisis is Catholic
I could be
Christian
first.
masculinity.
It's like
If you want to be a
Inception
good
level.
father, then bring your children to confession with you.
You know,
I can't
there's
get
an
there
Inception
unless I
level.
become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Warning, the Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side, so raise your glass. All right. All right. Man, this is going to be a crazy few weeks that we have in store. We're going to said the Holy Land. I have Holy Land on my
We are
mind.
going to the Holy Land.
In
but
April,
not in
not
the
next few
couple
weeks. Yeah, right. But if you want to go to the Holy Land with us,
You should totally come.
we'd love to have you. But we're going to Houston. Some would say the Holy Land of the U.S.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know who would say that. But
Great.
but we are going
Well,
there.
I'm excited to go.
We're gonna go give a talk on at the Together in Holiness. A couple different, three different parishes. So we're doing that this next week or this weekend, coming weekend, and then we have the Catholic Man Show Camp Out, which I'm pumped
Yeah,
about. We're gonna be smoking some pork. We're having a fish fry this year. We're doing a cigar rolling. We're doing it all.
You don't know about this.
and-
You don't know about this, but
Yeah?
we also might be doing 2 whiskey wrestles.
I do know about this.
You do.
Yes, there's very few things that
I'm just
you
saying,
say
I
you don't
just
know about
tried.
this.
I tried.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
And then we have, I
You
think
could
we,
at least have pretended. You know,
yeah, I'm sorry.
it's rude.
And then we're going to, we're going to Colorado for the XS90 Freedom Summit.
Yep.
And giving a talk there. Super excited about. And then we have another conference. I mean, we're busy the next. We have
it's busy season.
Yeah.
So to speak.
and we have
Yeah.
the Rosary Rally here in Tulsa that we're hosting.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Dave and I own and run the Catholic radio station here in Tulsa.
We don't own it, but we do run it.
Oh.
It's a nonprofit. It's owned by the nonprofit.
Yeah, it's owned by the. Yeah.
Just-
We started it.
Just in case anyone from the IRS is
He's
listening.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah,
Good idea.
okay.
I don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
Or stuff taken away from
And
us.
if you do get sued, I did not say that.
Well, that's why we have Jim. Jim's the fall guy.
Yeah.
Jim is the fall guy.
Hey, thanks for being here, Jim.
We appreciate you, Jim.
That's a true story. When we asked Jim to join the board, he's like, "You guys," you could tell there was some real hesitancy in his eyes. He's like, "You setting me up as the fall guy?" And we're like, "No."
Are you guys in trouble? But yeah, so one of the things that we do, so the radio station is a wonderful medium. The Catholic radio station is a wonderful medium in the Tulsa area for us to bring community together,
Yeah.
for us to evangelize, for us to defend the faith. And one of the things that we do is we try our best to host events that are community-based events to get together, to have fellowship, to learn more about our faith. And one of the things we do, thanks to Dave and Tricia Schlittler, is the Rosary Rally, which is awesome. I'll let you tell them about it.
The Rosary Rally is a 5K run and Rosary Rally. So it's a 5K where each kilometer is dedicated to a different mystery of the Rosary. And so as participants run, there are balloons throughout the course that represent Hail Marys, so you can kind of run and pray the rosary. I personally recommend praying it in your head. It's very hard to pray out loud.
Yeah, because you run
while
out of
running.
breath.
Yeah, because you cannot,
Yeah.
That's super. It's even hard just like casually walking uphill if you're praying the rosary in a group. You start to just
lose breath quick.
Anyway, so it's so awesome. There's also if
a mile walk.
There's a Mile for Mary walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
If 5K is not your speed, there's also just like participants praying the rosary at the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, we finish with a 4-man rosary relay, which is not only judged on speed, but also on reverence.
Mm-hmm. Your daughters won last year. Not shocking, but
they won one of the categories.
One of the categories.
Yeah, you're right. Something. Luke won one year.
Yeah.
So it's such an awesome. We have a holy mass, outdoor holy mass at 8:00.
Confessions.
Yep, confession.
We have a live band that plays at the end.
It's if you know the Tulsa area, it's in the gardens at La Fortune Park.
Anyway, it's awesome. Go to TulsaRosaryRally.com if you want to learn more about that.
Yes, and sign up.
Yeah,
it's free to come. There's also group rates for if you want to be a.
Well, it's not free to come.
It's free to come to the rally. You do have to pay. If you're gonna run or do the walk, but
right.
There's group rates available. So if you come with a group, you get a discount. Check it out. TulsaRosaryRally.com.
Yep. So tonight we're drinking Uncle Nearest 1884 small batch whiskey. Not a single drop of whiskey made into this bottle without me first tasting and approving it. I'm confident you will love it too.
Is this a backwash?
Is the master blender, is what he says.
Every drop he tasted. That's kind of the way it comes across.
It's not as well written. The wordsmithing.
That's you know what? That's one take.
Yeah. So there's a long history with Uncle Nearest. I'm not sure if you're aware.
I'm familiar with Uncle Nearest, but I'm not familiar with their history or how long it is.
So back in the very earliest of days of us,
the earliest of days
of America, distilling whiskey.
Okay.
There was a African American man who they called him Uncle Nearest, and he had the best batch of whiskey that he distilled, and it had to do with the way he charred the oak barrels. He charred them a certain way in which it really brought out a lot of vanilla and caramel, and it was just like his batch, right?
Yeah.
Well, long story short, there was a man who really liked the whiskey. His name was Jasper, and he came up to Uncle Nearest.
What a sweet old-fashioned name. You don't run into many Jaspers these days.
No, Jasper basically bought out.
Maybe it's due for a comeback.
Maybe
Jasper
bought out his recipe, and Jasper's last name is Daniels.
Oh, really? I see where this is going.
And he
had a son named Jack.
And no, he just named it Jack.
Oh, okay.
Instead, because Jasper Daniels doesn't really ring as well as Jack Daniels.
I agree. Jack Daniels hits a lot harder.
Right. But anyway, so Uncle Nearest, some of the earliest whiskeys, some of the earliest bourbons that came out of
Blazing
America.
the trail for American bourbon.
Yeah. So
Uncle
to his
Nearest.
soul, and to all those who helped bring about the currency of whiskey. Whiskey played a huge role in the foundation of our country. I don't know if you know this, but to them.
To Jasper.
We're on the Lord's team, the winning side.
So raise your glass.
Cheers. So it's going to be a very mild whiskey. It's not going to be spicy, or it's not going to be hot. It's 93 proof, so it's 46.5%, so you're not going to get a whole lot of alcohol burn. It's just a nice, mellow whiskey.
Yep. I agree. It's pleasant. It's got a nice finish. It hangs with you. And
at the very end, there's a little bit of this peppercorn allspice.
When you said it's not spicy, I was like, well,
it has a little bit at the end.
A little bit to it,
but it's not like when I said that, I was thinking more like the alcohol burn type of hot.
Yeah. Nope.
But what do you think, Jim?
Very good.
Very good on the yummy scale, huh?
And yummy.
Where is it on the yummy scale?
We'll go back to the 5-point scale.
Okay, because last it was like I thought we were on a 5-point scale, and like last time it was like
9 or
93
something.
or.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was really good.
4.8.
4.8
out of 5.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what to get Jim for a birthday or for a Christmas present.
Yeah.
So bourbon actually was
How
one
much? How much is this?
It was about $45, I believe.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's worth every penny right there.
So bourbon actually helped us pull through a bunch of wars. I don't know if you know this or not, but one of the ways what happened was when we would go to war, like the Civil War and what is it, the 1812
12
war, yeah, War of 1812 and the Civil War and things like that. What happened is they obviously would go into a lot of debt when wars happen, right?
Yeah.
And so what they would do afterwards is tax higher the alcohol tax to get us back out of debt. And so
if only it was that easy these days.
Yeah. So that's how, like, they used a lot of alcohol, a lot of bourbon, as a way of currency, as a way, and this is why they had to have bottled and bond, because it started being manipulated and all these other things. But anyway, whiskey, bourbon is something that we should really be proud of as in America. Like, we always hail the Scotch and Irish whiskeys, as the top, but bourbon is something to be proud of. It's a very fine drink. It is.
It's definitely got its own. It's got its own space.
Right.
I do think that there is more refinement in many Scotches, but they've been doing it for
a lot longer.
But that's not a knock on bourbon. It's not a knock on Irish whiskey.
Right.
I agree. I think
so.
I like the space bourbon has carved out and does really well.
So the four things in which it has to be considered a bourbon whiskey, not just American whiskey. If I can remember this off the top of my head, I was not planning on saying this.
I think I know them too, but I'm not going to say them.
51% has to be 51% corn.
Yeah,
has to be virgin oak cask. Does not matter about the species of oak, but it has to be that.
Yeah.
No additives, and it has to come in at least distilled at 160 proof and into the barrel at least 90 proof.
It has to be made in America.
Yes, and has to be made in America. Yeah. Dang, I did it. That was it.
That was good. I like it.
We're going to talk about St. Thomas Aquinas.
Proud of you.
What's bourbon called that's not made in America?
What is bourbon called that's not made in America?
I don't know.
Whiskey.
Just whiskey?
Like there's Canadian whiskey.
Okay.
There's a lot of American whiskeys.
It's called trash.
But that's not bourbon.
Yeah, there is American whiskey. Yeah,
there's a lot of American whiskeys. In fact, most
Stranahan's, they kind of paved the way for American whiskey because they're not 51% corn. They're more like they make their whiskey like Scotch, except they make it here in America. So
sweet.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. We have no idea where Juan is.
We hope he's okay.
I think he probably is doing fine. He's probably doing great, honestly.
Yeah.
So I had some exciting adventures today, Adam.
Okay. Out after Mass?
After Mass.
Because sometimes there's some exciting adventures during Mass.
Oh, yeah. Those are not. I would typically don't put those in the exciting category.
Yeah. Definitions matter, I guess, on what you mean by exciting.
Yeah. So we have a tradition, of taking a Sunday walk, a family walk around the property after Mass on Sunday.
Yeah.
We were doing that today, and we walked through the front yard, made it back to the barn. And when we got in the barn, I said, okay, kids, everybody, just walk out, out of the barn. Everybody leave the barn right now. We have been trying to trap a rat. There's been a rat in the barn. I think at this point, the rat is gone. Because we've had all kinds of traps. The food is it's just not even touched. It's like, Today, though, I looked over at the live trap, and there was a skunk in it. In the barn. And we're all just right there. And it seemed fine with us being there, and it wasn't lifting its tail. But all of a sudden...
You don't smell like you got sprayed.
All the same, it's like, okay, out of the barn. Right now.
Yeah.
So I had to summon the courage today to go get that thing out of the trap.
Oh man, yeah, that would be.
I was like, do I just shoot it? You know, do I want to make do I take the opportunity to make a new hat? You know,
dude, I would. Okay.
That
crossed your mind.
Well, at least that way I don't have to walk up to the cage. Okay.
Yeah.
The only way to get it out of the cage is to walk up to the cage.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it. I did not get sprayed.
Wow. It's really impressive.
I felt like, I really conquered.
What was the disposition of the skunk when you approached the cage?
I was very cautious and slow.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking, so I was not.
What language?
I was singing the song Jolene by.
Okay, good. I know that skunks like country music.
Yeah,
so
they do, because that's their native, and that's their native habitat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's just the song I had been playing on the guitar right before that, and so I just kept it going with some Dolly Parton.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to like it.
Mm-hmm.
I could have changed the words if I had thought about it, like skunk, please don't spray me in the face, instead of like, don't take my man.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot. I didn't think about that at the time. What you do with a skunk is you want to take a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Skunks have terrible eyesight, very nearsighted. So, and they won't spray unless they can see what they're spraying. Okay? Because they also don't like the smell. Okay? It's not like they are immune. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought maybe made, because when you fart, like everybody kind of likes their own farts.
This is unbelievable.
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, that's not how it is with skunks. So you take a blanket and you slowly walk up to the cage. And if it starts to raise his tail, you just stop. Okay? Let him calm down. It's a slow process. That's why I did that. Got the blanket over. Took him outside. Because then you can't see, it's just dark. And then, open the lid and shot out.
Shot out of there?
Yeah.
Nice.
Did not get sprayed.
That's the key.
Yes. Yeah, because I decided if he did spray me, I was making a hat. That just, if you spray me, that's it.
You're done.
Yeah, we're taking a different course at that point. So he didn't spray me.
Nice.
It
Well,
ended
congrats.
well. It ended well.
That's great news.
But it was it was not what I expected today.
Yeah, not what was on the agenda.
No. Another exciting day on the farm.
Nice. Well played. Well played. That would have taken a little bit of fortitude. Like, I can imagine seeing that in there and being like, I just don't want to deal with this.
Have you ever been like in the area or like been around when a skunk sprays?
Yes.
Because it is not, you drive down the highway and you see,
Right.
you're like, oh,
No,
skunk, that skunk, and it smells bad. But when you are there,
yeah,
it happened. I was there like 5 or 6 years ago. It is burned into
hurts,
my memory.
Yeah, it hurts your eyes and your nose.
Yeah, and it's like
suffocating.
Yeah, it gets into your nose, and it's like
terrible.
It's so much worse.
Let's talk about good things, though. Let's talk about good things.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that was running through my mind as I'm walking with this. Do not spray me. Because also I was tempted, like, I'll just come back in 5 days. I'll just, what? I'm fine. But I was like, no, I'm not going to leave it out here just to starve, to like die of dehydration. That is just not the way. That's not the way.
Well played.
Yeah.
Good job. So tonight, we're going to talk about St. Thomas Aquinas. Shocker. We're going to talk about St. Thomas Aquinas.
We like him.
We do. But we're going to take a little bit of a different path than normal.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about St. Thomas Aquinas without reading much, if any, of his actual works.
Bold move.
Yeah.
Some might say that's a terrible way to play it.
So tonight, I'm pulling from this book. It's called The Life of St. Thomas Aquinas. It's by William of Tocco. And William, it's an extraordinary book. If you want to know a little bit about like just his life and some of the things about him before actually diving into some of them,
yeah,
this is a phenomenal book. Here, a couple of reasons why. William was new knew St. Thomas Aquinas. He was about 20 years younger than St. Thomas Aquinas.
Oh, okay.
Not a friend per se, not like Reginald, his good friend Reginald, but more of a student to master relationship, admirer, followed him a lot, listened to him a lot. But he was tasked with from the Dominican order to gather up as much information about his life to present to the Pope for his canonization process.
Really? Oh, cool.
So it's really crazy because
you had access to all the stuff and interview all the people.
Well, back then, when you say all the stuff, it's not like what it was today.
Well,
it is today.
Whatever it was, they let him look at it.
No, he made the stuff.
Okay.
So here's a couple of things. So he had to he was 70 when he got all this stuff actually done, because I think it was either, I can't remember, either 30 or 40 years after his death.
Yeah.
When it happened, when he was charged with this. So he's an old man, and he was called to go to all these different places to interview his family, some family members, old students, all these different people to get the accounts of this man's life.
Yeah.
And he had to swear an oath in front of Pope either Innocent or John the 22nd. I can't remember. It's close. I think it's Innocent. That the accounts that he made, in his findings, were all authentically true to the best of his knowledge. And back then, oaths were a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not like today anymore. It's not like perjury. It's yeah. Whatever. They were a really big deal, and so. But
that is how it is today, isn't it?
I mean, it's sad, but it's just the truth.
Yeah.
And he was not known as an academic. He was not known as this Dominican intellectual, but more of just a humble man. And his writings come off this way. It does not read. I actually really love it because his writings do not read as a man who is trying to use language in which you're thinking oh man, he's really trying to.
He doesn't come across as a Dominican. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's very easy to read. He also, it's not necessarily a history of it's not a biography. I wouldn't say, because he intentionally leaves out names and events that don't pertain to really the highest good of Aquinas. He would just say this person or this cardinal, and in these footnotes, the guy translated it. It's basically it's most likely this guy, this high esteemed cardinal, but he didn't want to say it, to show, because what you find out is that all these people, Aquinas obviously had this huge reputation, this resounding reputation around, and then and he had the emperor was big into asking him questions, and then the Pope was big into asking him questions. So all these different people were asking him questions about how should we govern this way, or how should we take this moral approach, all these different things. Well, he's not writing in the year, in this date and this year, this person asked St. Thomas Aquinas this question.
Right.
It really is beautiful because it talks about his life as almost Aquinas would kind of talk about it if he had to, which he wouldn't want to, right? Because all of Aquinas' writings, we don't know really much about Aquinas at all from his own writings. And he did that intentionally, right? He didn't want to be known, so to speak. So we didn't know anything about, from his own writings, about anything about his family, the way he, looked, the way, where all he went, where he was staying, we don't know any of these things from him.
You would have thought those things were not interesting.
Right. Because he didn't want to be original.
Yeah.
He wanted to be unoriginal. He wanted to just be, an imitator of Jesus Christ.
It's actually pretty, not actually a whole lot of those guys running around who actually do it well.
Right. So it's put out by Angelus Press. It's very recent on the translation in English.
Okay.
So it's not it's not been widely produced in English for very long. And anyway, as I read through it, there was just a lot of beautiful things about him that I was I didn't know about this. So I compiled out of this. There's a lot of different, tales about his story, his life and things. But I compiled 16 things that are not normally talked about when talking about St. Thomas Aquinas, and we'll talk about that on the other side of the break.
Cool.
Have a new listener tonight, Duke Floric.
Duke Floric, nice. He doesn't look very interested.
Duke.
He's
Duke of Earl. Duke of Earl. Too low. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. We're going to talk about 16 things about St. Thomas Aquinas' life that you probably have not heard. This is transcribed by William of Toka. Toko? I almost said Atoka, like Oklahoma.
How do you know it's not taco?
I don't. I guess. Toko.
I would say Toko. Is it two C's?
Yeah.
Tocco.
Mm-hmm.
Taco would be a fun way to pronounce it.
Yeah. So here's 16 things. So
someday I would be fine being remembered as David of Taco.
David could be a lot worse.
David of the Taco. Man, he loved
David the Skunk Whisperer.
He loved ground beef wrapped in a hard shell. That was his jam.
So as we go through, tell me afterwards if you heard about it before or not. If this is something that you've heard before or not, and then if you have any commentary, obviously.
Okay.
So the first thing is about his mom.
All right.
Very fitting. And it's beautiful because in this book he refers to her as Lady Theodora. Her name is Theodora.
Okay. I like it.
But he refers to her as
familiar, right?
Lady Theodora.
Uh-huh. Who does? William?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he refers to her. Her name is Theodora, but he refers to her as Lady Theodora.
Was that like a title? Like was that
possibly?
I think that was like for nobility. So maybe she was of the noble class.
So she was of the noble class.
So she would have been. It's not just he's calling her. She is Lady Theodora.
Maybe. Yeah. The thing about it is in the book that he doesn't talk anything about Aquinas' dad.
Really?
Mm-mm. Which I found interesting. So, but Lady Theodora, it was known all around as an extremely virtuous woman. She was visited by a hermit one day.
That doesn't happen very often.
No. And he told her, "Rejoice, my lady, for you are pregnant, and you will bear a son whom you will call Thomas. And you and your husband will plan to make a monk of him at the monastery Monte Cassino, where the body of Blessed Benedict rests. In the hope of obtaining important revenues from the monastery through the dignity of your son's office. Nevertheless, God will have other plans for him. The boy will become a brother of the order of preachers, of such sanctity of life and splendor of knowledge, that his like will be found in the world in his age."
His like will be found?
I'm sorry, will not be found in the world of his age.
Wow.
Now,
it's kind of funny.
I think that kind of sounds...
If you knew that, why'd you still try to put him, it's like...
Well, it sounds very familiar, right? Because then she responds and answers him, "I am not worthy to bear such a son, but let God do the pleasure of his will."
Yeah, it's totally familiar.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very familiar. And then in the footnotes, it says that there's a possibility, like afterwards, like after William got this account from some of his family members, that some of them thought that it was actually Saint Dominic himself appearing to her as a hermit.
Appearing to her?
Yes.
Okay.
As like in the skies of a hermit.
Like a locution of St. Thomas. So not actually St. Thomas. I mean, yes. I'm confusing it. I'm making it more confusing sounding is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. What,
so
do they give reasons why they would think that?
No, it's just that was just on the footnote.
Kind of a pious.
Yeah, a pious tradition, maybe.
Belief, yeah.
So anyway, had you heard that before?
No, I have not heard that one.
It's actually really awesome because some of these chapters, he intentionally kind of goes through and parallels a lot of the beginning of Thomas's life with different prophets from the Bible, and different like aspects in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And correlates like this happened to Thomas in his life, just like the prophet, which is really interesting. But I thought that was really cool.
That is cool.
When Thomas was a baby, he was given to his nurse, and the nurse put him down to play with all these other kids, and Thomas grabbed this piece of parchment in his hand, and then the nurse came back and grabbed him, and she had to change him, and he would not let her open his hand.
It's the Hail Mary.
No, it's not. Well, it's Ave Maria. Yeah. So he was screaming, and so the nurse was like, I don't know, just gave it back to the mom. And the mom finally just said like, okay, fine, I'm just not gonna mess with the hand, and washed him and got him changed and got him ready for and just let him have that hand. Well, eventually she got out of his hand and realized, and as she was doing it, he was screaming at the top of his lungs. And there's that parchment paper. She opened it up, and it said Ave Maria. And from that day on, when Thomas was screaming, he couldn't be comforted without being handed a parchment of paper into his hand.
Any paper or the one that said Ave Maria?
It didn't mention whether or not it was Ave Maria or not. But then he would actually take it as a little kid and chew it and put it in his mouth, as a lot of kids do, right?
Yeah.
And end up swallowing it. And the correlation here is like, here's a man, the baby that is destined to devour the word, so to speak, and was doing it from the very beginning of his.
I wonder if it tasted sweet as honey in his mouth, bitter and
right,
in his stomach. That's also a possibility.
Could be.
When he was a kid, I don't know if this is on your notes, but he used to say 1,000 Aves a day.
It's not in my notes.
Of course.
So you'd heard that. You obviously had heard that story before.
Yeah, I had heard that one before. And so he would say 1,000 Hail Marys a day in Latin. However, it's like, wow, that would take a long time. It would take a long time. But also at when he was alive, the Hail Mary was only half as long as it is now.
Right. It was just the first half.
Right. It wasn't. There was no Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of death. That part was added on later, which is a great addition, because that's where that's actually the part of the prayer that I
need the most.
Yeah. I love and honor Our Lady, but really I need her to pray for me.
Right.
A lot. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I'm selfish like that.
Yeah. So that's number 2. Number 3.
Okay.
This gets back. This gets to the point where he's now going off to. He's already been to the Benedictine monastery. He's decided to go to the Order of Preachers.
Okay.
Now remember that the Order of Preachers at this time was very new and wasn't really it wasn't prestigious at all.
Okay.
Right. The Benedictine monastery, the Benedictine Monte Cassino is like the cream of the crop, the highest. It comes with a lot of pomp and circumstance, and
they were known as the thinkers and the academics.
Right.
At the time.
Right. And this is why in the beginning when that hermit came and said that he would go to Monte Cassino, where the body of Benedict rests, in hope of obtaining important revenues from that monastery because of the dignity of your son. You want to send him there because in hopes of also receiving
a good career.
Right. But he had switched over to the Order of Preachers, and his mom, knowing that this was already prophesied to her, wanted to go and confirm his vocation, and confirm the prophecy, and said yes, this is all happening. I agree, right?
Yeah.
But the friars would not allow her to meet him
The Benedictine monks?
No, the friars.
Oh, okay.
The Dominican friars.
Yeah.
Because they were worried that, the motherly heart is wanting to pull him away from the Dominicans, right?
Right.
They were worried, like, no, your motherly instincts are kicking in, and you're wanting to see your son, and you're wanting to talk him out of going.
She didn't tell him, no, that's not what I want to do.
Well,
they probably didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't show their cards.
Right, well,
They
yeah,
just said,
exactly.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can't. Right, exactly. And so she, was in distress about this, right? Because she wanted to confirm, I don't know, for whatever reason, wanted to confirm this, and the family knew this, and so the brothers went to the emperor and said, we want to go obtain Thomas from the order of preachers to confirm this for my mother's will. My mother desires this. And the emperor said, yeah, do it. And so he sent in his guards and grabbed Thomas and took him away, which was a big ordeal.
Yeah.
And through the process, Thomas, while they were beating, not beating up on him, but kind of roughing him up a little bit, as you typically do in that age, when you take somebody, you rough them up, and you always kind of apparently that you take off all their clothes to make sure you don't have any swords or you don't have anything on you.
All right, some favor these guys are doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. So, but Thomas would not allow his habit to be removed, and so they were kind of tearing it, and in Thomas's mind, he related this to Christ and his passion, them tearing off his garments and all the, and so he welcomed, but he clung to his habit. Well, what happened is the Pope found out about it, and the Pope got mad and said, no, you're not going to do this, and not only that, you are going to punish it, in pain, anybody who took and who was responsible to take Thomas. And so then they gave Thomas back. The friars saw that how holy Thomas was because he was holding on, he suffered a lot to hold on to his garments, his habit, and basically said no, we don't want to press charges. We don't want let's just make sure that let's just end this.
Yeah.
Let's just let bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
And so they didn't end up punishing him, but if they would have ended up punishing his brothers.
Right. Which is not what
they wanted to do.
No.
Anyway, we'll continue talking about this St. Thomas Aquinas on the other side. Had you heard that story?
No. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles. Here's Adam Minahan. Talking about St. Thomas Aquinas. And 16 things you probably didn't know about.
Yep. So, had you heard that story before?
No, I had not heard that.
It has a lot of ramifications, and we're going to actually talk about a little bit more of this later on.
Okay.
But, the whole ordeal could have been disastrous on many occasions. We'll talk about this more. So, bookmark this.
Okay.
So, the next thing...
Bookmarked.
So, the next thing... the fourth point, everybody knows the story of Thomas being confined, going up to the tower, and running out.
That's a weird story. If his mom was so pious, that story doesn't seem to fit in, and with a family that was holy.
Right, and you'll find out. We're going to talk about his family a little bit more, and his family's crazy holy.
Yeah. So what's up with
so
that?
I don't know that it didn't mention
how'd that happen?
I don't know, but he was confined up there for 2 years.
Yeah.
Into the tower, and throughout this 2 years,
this is after he had already joined the Dominicans.
I'm not positive if it was afterwards or
it would seem like it would be before.
Yeah, but this isn't also he doesn't articulate chronology again.
Right.
This isn't a biography.
Yeah.
It's not dated but this is just I'm going through chapter and chapter.
It just seems like that would be something that would have happened before he joined the Benedictines,
or before he joined the Dominicans,
or something.
Yeah. So he's up in the tower though, and these 2 years are actually really pivotal for his life, because what he does is he just devotes and dedicates his whole time to study. So he reads, the Bible and almost basically memorizes the Bible.
Yeah.
He reads and studies the book of sentences, which is a really popular book by Peter Lombards. It's a theological textbook, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, you know about it?
Yes.
Okay. And then also a lot of treatises on Aristotle.
Okay.
And during this time, it was, obviously the foundation of him like learning and developing the habit of study and all these other things. But he also ended up teaching his sister during this time.
Okay.
And his sister ended up becoming the abbess of a convent of Santa Maria in Capua. I don't know.
Okay, Capua.
And it was through, she says, it's through his teaching those 2 years that equipped her to become the abbess that she became.
Wow.
Which I didn't know.
Cool.
Did you know this?
No.
So at this point, so here he is. He's been up at the tower for 2 years. He's been studying like crazy, right? But then he meets the great Albert.
Yeah.
St. Albert the Great, right? Who is a man who just like is on the wrong side of the timing of history, right? So like remember back in the 80s with Oklahoma State football, you had Thurman Thomas as the running back. And Thurman Thomas was a stud. He was like one of the best running backs in the nation.
Right.
Unfortunately,
he was right behind Barry Sanders.
He was right in front of Barry Sanders.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Barry Sanders followed him.
Yeah. And
so very few people remember Thurman Thomas over Barry Sanders.
Right.
And kind of the same thing with
Albert.
With Albert, right?
Because Albert was known. He had a reputation at the time.
Oh, of he was the master of all sciences.
Right.
He was known not only.
That's why he's the great.
Yeah, I mean he was the cream of the crop, and he still is. I mean, if you read his writings, they're incredible, right? But he was told
and you got to give him a lot of credit where it's due for Thomas becoming who he was. I'm sure that Albert the Great had a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Now he told St. Albert the Great told Thomas, and then I think told a couple other people as well, but it said, "Do not say this until after my death," which is a huge theme. Thomas says this as well to a lot of people who come in contact with him, and he does miraculous things, and he's like, "Whatever you do not say anything about this until after my death." Probably just out of humility, So St. Albert, they're asking him, like, how did you become the master of all these sciences? And he told him not to say anything until after his death, that he consecrated himself to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and on one occasion was wholly inflamed. Not holy like Holy, but entirely inflamed by the devotion to her. And he received a vision from her while he was burning. And she came with linens and wiped his face with her blessed hands to give him relief. And when he woke up from this whole ordeal, his intellect was heightened. He had this like crazy understanding for things that he had not had before. Like everything seemed to like just kind of come in order, and like he had his memory was very much heightened.
I wonder if his skin looked good.
I don't know. He exfoliated to the max.
I kind of see it also being like, and also, I looked beautiful. Has anyone here ever been totally engulfed in fire?
It sounds so hot.
It's gotta be so hot.
Yeah. So this just goes to show you, I think also that St. Albert the Great not only taught Aquinas and all of these intellectual things, but you'll find out later that he also taught him in so much spiritual matters as well, and especially the love of the Blessed Mother.
Praise God.
When St. Albert died, they exhumed his body out of reverence in the tomb. Actually, they tombed him, and they pulled the tomb out, the boulder or whatever it was in the tomb, to go back to reverence his body. And they laid him
just to venerate his body.
To venerate the body, yeah, because he was known just as a holy man,
okay,
right? And so it's like, well, this is a holy man, and he's probably up for sainthood and all these other things. So like, let's reverence his body. So they move it, and when they entomb somebody, right, they put him face up, hands over, their chest in a cross manner. Like this is just kind of the normal protocols, right? They found him face down, prostrated himself like he had been. Almost all of his life in prayer, because that's how he would pray just prostrated face down.
Yeah.
So they found him like
Literally
that,
rolling in his grave.
and and his body smelled of sweet perfume.
Cool.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a little bit about his teacher that this guy learned from. St. Thomas Aquinas learned from.
Mm-hmm.
Had you heard that story about St. Albert?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Thomas Aquinas is like building up this reputation, right? Like he's under Albert the Great, which is, the guy.
Yeah,
right?
probably hard to even become his student.
Right. Yeah, he was like the Albert Einstein of his era, or like whoever you want to say. So Thomas was making a name for himself as a teacher, and they wanted to promote him to Master of Theology, which is a higher level. It's not like getting your master's, so to speak, but it's this hierarchy of theology, and they wanted to promote him to a master. Before promoting other people who is actually kind of ahead of him, is supposed to be ahead of him, and Thomas declined it. He was like, no.
Like by seniority.
By seniority, yeah. And he's like, no, I don't, do not do this. And he went into prayer in tears. One thing you'll learn about Aquinas is like, the man cried a lot in prayer. He was an emotional man in prayer, which is very interesting because he also did not allow his emotions to control, his appetites to control him in any way, shape, or form. He was completely, focused on, ordered towards reason and truth, and would not any kind of inclination to his emotions.
Yeah, there's basically no emotion in his writing.
Right. Well, but
just like,
it's just so childlike.
Yeah.
Right.
But even he's writing about things that he's very passionate about. Our Lord, and yet even then it's very clinical, and just like academic. It's
some of it. I mean,
it's just logical and
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's well ordered. It's not. I mean, he did write many other poems. He actually did write a lot of stuff like that. But his work, the Summa, anyways.
So he's
not an emotional.
So he's in there. He's crying. He's praying to our Lord, like, please don't let me. Please don't allow this to happen to me. And Saint Dominic appears to him and asks why he's petitioning God with his tears. He said, like, God has prepared this for you, and you should rejoice. And he still like had this hesitancy, and so Saint Dominic said, like, out of obedience to your to the hierarchy, they're asking you you should do it.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay. And so he allows it to happen.
I can picture him going, like, listening to Saint Dominic, and he's like, yeah, is there anybody else up there?
Right. Yeah. Can I get a
second?
Can I say a second opinion?
Like, what's Mary say?
But here's a man again. Saint Dominic appears to him,
but he's also a Dominican, and so like kind of is bound. I mean, Saint Dominic's dead. I don't know if you're bound in obedience to a dude once he's dead. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the physics how that works.
Yeah,
but he is the founder of your order,
right?
And if he appears to you, I feel like you should probably just go with it.
Yeah. So, So he accepts. He becomes a master of theology.
Okay.
One of the things that happened here, I don't know. This is number 7 here. We're on number 7.
Okay.
This is when he converts 2 Jews.
Okay.
So there was a tradition on Christmas where the Jewish community would send 2 of the rich and learned Jews to gather with these Christians outside of Rome in this area, and the king asked if Thomas would come and engage with them, because they're the 2 best Jews in the community, as far as like intellectually and prominent Jews that would come over and they would talk to the Christians.
Yeah.
And so he asked Thomas to come over and like converse with them and try to convert them. And so Thomas discusses this. I love this. Is about like, oh man. Okay, so we're gonna be out of time on the radio. Go check us out on the podcast, CatholicManShow.com, because I absolutely love his tactics here on how he converts the
Cliffhanger.
Jews. So go check it out. TheCatholicManShow.com. We're talking about the 16 things that you may not know about St. Thomas Aquinas in his life. We had a little bit of Uncle Nearest, 1884. We're on the Lord's team,
the winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
Cheers. So the king asks him to come over.
Yeah.
Thomas agrees. Like basically anybody of hierarchy that asks Thomas to do something, he basically does it.
Well, I think that should be the way.
Right.
It is.
But again, this is kind of foreign to modernity, and so
yeah,
it's like freedom. Like I do what I want, you know.
So I think most people are like that. You know, like
yeah.
If you're like who is not gonna, if your parish priest comes up to you and asks you to do something, like,
are you not gonna do
who's gonna say no?
Right.
You know, like you're not gonna do that.
Right. So Thomas agrees. He goes and he's talking to these Jewish people, right? And Thomas discusses the old law, the Old Testament, with them at length, because this is where the common ground is, right? So he's talking about the old law and proves to them that the coming of our Savior comes through the words of the prophets from the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
But then he says, in his humility, he says, like, go back. I'm going to give you a day, and I want you to think about what I've said. And then tomorrow we will come back and reconvene. And I want you to, have a chance to
think about it, so you can
give a good defense of against this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they break, which I think is just awesome. So Thomas goes back to his cell and just prays basically all night for these people,
mm-hmm.
for these two Jews, and he's crying, he's pleading with the Lord, he's begging the Lord to please convert these two people. For them to see, the truth. Next day comes, and they see Thomas Aquinas, and they're filled with the Holy Spirit immediately once they see St. Thomas, and convert.
Sweet.
And then after that,
so had they planned on making a defense?
They had a defense ready.
So it's just a miraculous event.
It was a miraculous event, and they saw St. Thomas Aquinas filled with the Holy Spirit and converted. And Aquinas, throughout his life, loved, obviously, as all Catholics do, but had a special place in his heart for the Nativity of our Lord, for Christmas.
Okay.
Right? And so this happened, during the Christmas time. And then from that moment on, every Christmas, he received new visions of the Son of God and the Blessed Virgin Mary on Christmas Day.
Wow.
Which gave him, obviously, a renewed joy and satisfaction of what he's doing to carry on for the next year.
Talk about like being excited for Christmas.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I receive visions every year.
Yeah. Had you heard that one before?
No.
But so here's what I loved about it, right? Is that Thomas knew who these people were. He knew how to talk to them. He met them on their level. In all humility, he said, hey, go back. Think about this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm not trying. He's like.
I mean, he is trying to win an argument.
But he's really trying to win the soul.
Right.
So he's giving them every chance that they can get.
Right.
He's being very humble in his approach. And then goes and prays for him. So, to me, I think a lot of times we forget. Like, there's at least maybe this is just me, but
you forget to do the praying
to actually,
part of it,
the whole praying part of. So he goes back to his cell and just, throws his hands and feet, on the ground, praying to our Lord for these people.
Mm-hmm.
He had an acute awareness of the worth of a soul. So, anyway, I love that one. So let's talk about his humility. So this is only number 8. How far along are we? This may be it.
We might have to speed it up.
Okay, we'll speed it up, or maybe we can make it a 2-part. I don't know. So on his humility, so he's talking about on his humility. He says, this is something that somebody asked him about, like, how come you're so smart, and like how are you?
He said, because I'm so handsome.
Because I'm so handsome. He says, I give thanks to God for all my good looks.
Yes.
No, but he says, I give thanks to God that I have never experienced any motion of vainglory on account of my knowledge, my authority as a master, or any of my scholastic attainments. For it is He who has raised up my mind from the seat of humility. Even if the first inkling of such a notion ever approached my reason, I subdued it by the established judgment for the same reason. So, like, the man just continually, like, would say like, no, this isn't like my doing. This is a gift from God, right? His humility was just known, spread
worldwide.
like literally worldwide. One example is that at one point in time in his town, he was praying as he does a lot. The man prayed constantly. A visiting friar came in, and he was tasked with like taking a young friar with him to go accomplish a task. He comes in, he sees St. Thomas Aquinas. He thinks that St. Thomas Aquinas is the young guy who's supposed to help him, and he immediately says, "Hey, come on, we gotta go. We gotta get this thing done."
They had to go beg for food.
Yeah. Okay, so you've heard this one as well. So Aquinas, concludes his prayer, and immediately just goes and follows the man. And as they're going around begging for food, the people in the town notice, like, this is St. Thomas Aquinas. This is obviously not Saint, but this is Thomas.
Yeah.
Like, Friar Thomas, like, what are you doing here? And the other priest realizes, oh, I have made a mistake.
Did he realize it then, or was it when they got back that he realized? In my mind, the story went that they got back from begging, and then like that's when somebody else said, "Oh, Thomas, there you are," and then that's when the guy realized, like, what?
I think in here it talked about how like people were talking to him out there, but
I also could just not have the story right.
But it just goes to show you, like, if somebody asked Thomas to do something, he would just go and do it.
Yeah, that is funny.
One of the Dominican,
he got a kick out of it doing it though. Like,
oh yeah, he's internally just going
this guy
like,
doesn't know who I am, but let's do it. I'm ready. I'm down.
So Thomas was known to get up very early, say pray the mass, and then typically he would actually go and concelebrate with either Reginald, his friend, or somebody else, right? And so he'd concelebrate. Father Vincent McNabb, who's a very great theologian, Dominican, but like really odd, and was struck by the fact that one of the greatest theologians in Christendom was happy to basically be an altar boy at Mass for somebody else.
Yeah.
Just again to show you just his humility. Okay, so here's a very quick one, number 9. His secretary said that so people talk about all the time how Reginald said like that Thomas was able to dictate 3 or 4 different books at a time with different secretaries, right? But his secretary actually said that when Thomas was asleep, he would sometimes continue to speak sentences that fit perfectly into what he was dictating while he was awake.
So would he write them down still?
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, maybe take like a extra piece of paper. Like, hey, here's some stuff I wrote down that you said while you were sleeping. Do you want me to put it in the official thing, or
does this make?
You did say it.
Does this make?
So...
The next one is like beautiful. I think it's number 10, and it's actually it's William. It's about William, but he doesn't mention it as first person. He mentioned it as a brother who was needing to know.
Okay.
So he doesn't name himself in this writing.
Yeah.
But it's very clear from reading it that it's actually him. So Thomas has died, and William is preparing all these documents for his canonization, and like he was getting very nervous, right? Like, here's this magnificent man. I'm just I'm just a regular old Dominican.
Yeah.
Like I'm in charge of getting all these things together. Am I doing it justice? And Thomas appears to William. And he appears to him as a younger version of Thomas.
Okay.
And William was like, Thomas, you look young.
You look good, brah.
Yeah, and he says, Thomas says that that the saints are full of youth. Is what he says, which I think is like kind of cool. But William asks if he wrote if what he had wrote of Thomas was well, very similar to how you hear Thomas asking Jesus if he wrote well of him, right? It's kind of very parallel. But Thomas corrected him on who gave Thomas's eulogy, because William wasn't there when for the eulogy, but had heard, oh, this guy is the one who gave the eulogy, and just out of truth and desire to the truth, he's like, You've written well. However, it wasn't that dude who gave the eulogy. It was actually
Written well, except the part that you got completely wrong.
right. Yeah, and then he's like, "Thank you so much." And then he asked Thomas about one of his writings because Thomas talks about how the saints have a threefold vision of God, which I would love to do an episode on this after I study it a little bit.
All right.
But Thomas says that there's a threefold vision of God. One type is a sensible vision, one's an imaginative vision, and another is an intellectual vision.
Okay.
And so that was kind of, I think that was Bowie.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I could be wrong.
And this is what he's saying as an apparition. Like
No. He's already written this in the Summa.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant he was saying that to
No.
him.
This has already been written in the Summa, but that was
him.
kind of something that people were like, "Is that true?" Or
how do you know?
Yeah, how do you know? Yeah. And so he was asking him like, "Is what you wrote about this true?" And Thomas confirms, "Yes, this is true."
Yes.
And
that's why I wrote it.
And then he left. And then he
Sweet.
disappeared.
Wait.
Yeah, I have another question. Yeah. So another one. So Thomas, obviously being so holy, he found it difficult to believe that anyone had sinned,
giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he's
no
always
way.
there's no way
they
he would
never
choose
done that.
knowingly. The man would not have sinned.
Yeah.
Because he imagined that all men were very much like him in his disposition and his But when he found that wasn't the case, that that everybody didn't have this innocence, it troubled him, right? And so there was a time where he found that one of his brother friars, it was known that the man freely chose. Knew it and freely chose to sin anyway. Now, it doesn't say whether it was a mortal sin, if it was grave matter or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Thomas took it on himself as it was him that sinned. Because he said, I have to replicate the Apostle Paul, who, imitated Christ and took on the sins of many. And so, he, threw down, all night long in prayer. In a penance for this man's sins.
Wow. I've heard that when he was a young boy, Aquinas, he could see his guardian angel, an angel. He could see angels. And I forget exactly what happened in the story, but then, there was a moment where he, said something or mentioned something, and then realized, wait,
you guys don't see these people?
You can't see your guardian angel? Because he just thought
everybody can.
Because he can, when you grew up that way and
right. Yeah.
So
it's funny that wasn't mentioned in this book.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is
well, it might not be verifiable. It could be one of those
Well, and there's also other books Jacques Maritain has he has a book that's a really good biography of St. Thomas Aquinas. Reginald, his buddy, has some writings as well. Another great. So it could be over there.
Yeah. I also like the stories about, Aquinas. Thomas is trying to figure out what does this mean in this passage of the Bible, and then Peter shows up.
Yeah. So I didn't add any of those in there because people have heard these.
Because those are
because he struggled to understand certain aspects of the New Testament, yearned more than anything to understand them.
Right.
And then Jesus sent St. Paul and St. Peter.
It happens to me all the time, Peter showing up to explain things.
Right, yeah. So, okay, so this goes to show you the holiness of this man, right? Whenever you encounter a holy guy, right, a holy priest or a holy, holy guy, and you're like, man, there's something about, you can tell, this man is holy. They talked about, when Mother Teresa would walk down the airport, people would just, stop and just
and be weeping,
and just be crying or kneeling down as she walked by. They could just witness and feel the presence of holy. Had to be so much.
I'm sure that.
Do you not realize that this is hurting my salvation?
Right. I'm just an old woman.
But you get this feeling, right? Well, there's many times where people they had so much charity and he had so much kindness that people would say that you could not observe him in conversation for any length of time without being refreshed with grace and some special consolation.
Wow.
That like he said, there was like time and time after like cardinals and bishops and like all these people who would like come to him for guidance, or he would actually go to those people for and they would come away like feeling like a special grace or some kind of consolation, which is pretty incredible. Okay, 13. We're getting close.
Okay.
Let's talk about his family.
Okay.
Mom Theodora, a lady known as deep devotion, abstinence, and prayer, to the extent that she would develop calluses on her hands and knees from prostrating herself and casting herself on the earth for continuous genuflections. Like, that's pretty intense, right?
Yeah.
Like, William says in there, indeed, she would not have merited to bear such a son unless her prayers had been pleasing before God.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Totally.
One of his sisters, also Theodora.
How many brothers and sisters did he have? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Like, I don't know exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I don't either.
But she was also known. One of her sisters, lady, the sister Theodora, was known as a very pious woman. She freely distributed like everything she possessed to whoever needed it. Like, she was known as this woman who had just devout, like, a sense of poverty, like a desire for poverty, and would just give even the necessities that she needed to whoever asked for. She conducted herself with like this most like austerity. Like she was very, like, she lived an ascetic life. In fact, they said like, because it wasn't proper in those days for women to like during the evening time, or like during the time where prayer and fastings and things like that were happening, like for them to showcase it, or like, even in the family. So she would wait till everybody would go to sleep, and then she would like
daily discipline.
Yeah, make disciplines, mortifications on herself, on her body, in the middle of the night, so no one would know. But her body was also found incorrupt and had like this sweet fragrance whenever they exhumed her body.
Sweet.
Which is pretty epic.
Yeah.
Even his nephew, Tom, which also another man named Thomas, he was a count, and he also became a Dominican to follow his uncle. But he was known to exhibit great virtue. He was a man who, like, people would go to afterwards and be like, listen, which is, it's a guy like you have big shoes to fill, right?
Yeah.
But they would go to him and be like, they would also like reference him almost like as a mini St. Thomas, or like a secondary St. Thomas Aquinas, because he was so well known.
Yeah.
One of his brothers was a martyr. Now, remember when I told you to bookmark that thing earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not like official by the church. The church is not like said
proclaimed as
as a martyr, but his name was Ronaldo, and he was martyred for siding with the Pope over the emperor to dispute, like in a dispute that the emperor had, and the emperor basically threw him in exile and put him to death for it. Now, the reason why is because the emperor actually, like, when the Pope summoned and said, like, no, you guys,
you shouldn't be helping his mom.
You shouldn't have captured St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah.
The emperor reluctantly allowed that to happen, but he was like really upset about it.
Yeah.
And basically said, like, I'm gonna let this happen, but you're still on my side, right? Like, you're still on my side. And Ronaldo said, no, I'm not. I'm with the Pope. And so he cast him in exile because he said, like, you're against me.
Yeah.
And summoned him to death.
How did he die?
It didn't say how he died.
Okay.
But he died. So, like, another, like, a brother of St. Thomas Aquinas is a martyr for standing up for the Pope.
Wow.
Also, here's another thing that I thought was really interesting. This is 14, so we only have a couple more.
Okay.
Because, tell me what you think about when you envision St. Thomas Aquinas, like, physically. What do you see? What do you see?
Well, I've heard he's bald and fat. That's what I've heard.
Right.
So,
like he's bald.
I don't
and
actually
fat.
like think about a visual of what like very often.
Looks like Jim.
Jim says it looks like Jim. Yeah. So like the tradition is that he's a bald, fat man.
Mm-hmm.
Weighs a bunch.
A portly fellow.
Right. William disagrees.
Okay.
William does say that he is a balding man, but that he actually has like a athletic build. And he says that because it says like basically his natural constitution of the doctor's body corresponded with his interior virtue of the mind.
Like an offensive lineman athletic build, or
No. Like so it even said that Thomas was passing through the courtyard, and the peasants working in the fields left their labors to marvel at his imposing stature and physical beauty, being full of admiration for a man of such beauty.
All right.
So like,
where's the fat story come from?
I mean I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I just found it interesting that William, who swore an oath to the Pope that everything that he's written, he believes to be true.
Yeah. Well, he knew him.
Yeah, and he knew him.
I mean,
he studied
so
underneath
he would
him.
have known if he was a big fat man or not.
Yeah. So I found that to be very shocking.
All right. Well, I like that.
Okay, so here's a couple other ones.
Okay.
Number 15. So
almost there.
Almost there. We're close. We're not actually that too far in, right? I mean, an hour and 15 minutes.
I can't see
20
it too
minutes,
far
maybe.
away.
I want to know about St. Thomas's tooth.
Okay. I will. That's the last one.
Okay.
St. Thomas's tooth.
Okay.
But 15. So a vision. Like so when St. Thomas was alive, he had his sister who had already passed. Appeared to him. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And she was telling him, "I'm in purgatory. Will you please say some mass, X number of masses for my soul?" And he did.
Which is this the abbess sister, or is this just?
I think it was the abbess sister, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
And so he did.
Okay.
And then she appeared to him again to tell him, like, "Thank you so much. I'm in heaven." And so Thomas said, "You're welcome." Obviously, like as a gentleman, he was like, "I'm happy to."
Sweet sis.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're in heaven. But then he said, "What about my state? What about my soul's state? Like, can you ask? Can you tell? Like, can you figure out where am I at?" Here's what she said.
Because I think the reason for this is at the time the common belief was that you could not know whether you were in a state of grace or not. And if you proclaimed to know, then that was they did the same thing to Joan of Arc. In her trial, they said, "Are you in a state of grace?" And that's when she gave the very famous line, "If I am, may God keep me there. If I'm not, may he swiftly bring me back into a state of grace." And that was a trap, because the belief at the time was that you couldn't know whether or not you're in a state of grace. Now, the church says differently now.
Yeah.
That in fact, you should know.
Right. And actually gives the reasons why.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, but here's what she says to him.
Okay.
This is quoting her. She says, "You are in a good state, brother. You will soon be joining us. But the glory that has been prepared for you is greater than ours." And she's talking about like the rest of her family. "Hold fast to the great gift that you've been given." When he took this opportunity to ask about his brother as well, because she said "You're greater than ours." He's like,
Ours,
"Oh yeah. Like, well, what about my brother?" Which he has multiple. He said, "What about Lord Lanfaldo?"
All right.
I don't know.
Let me see.
Dolfo. Landolfo.
Landolfo, yeah.
She replied, "He's in purgatory." And he said, "Well, Ronaldo." And he said, which is his older brother. And she said, he is also in paradise. And then on a different occasion, he received another vision from her about his brother, and there was a book shown to him by an angel with the columns of which were written in blue and gold ink. And there he read the name of his brother among the lines of gold, which were reserved for the martyrs. So remember
so he was counted as a martyr.
I mean,
in heaven.
In heaven.
In the place where it counts.
Right.
I mean, it counts here too, but that's only because if it counts here, it definitely counts upstairs. You know?
Right. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Had you heard that one before?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so last one. 16. Okay. You thought we weren't going to get there.
No, I knew we were going to get there. I didn't know it was
afraid.
going to take this long.
Yeah. So, as Thomas was getting to be known as this man of, rhetoric, the thing about St. Thomas was his rhetoric was just on point, right? The man knew a lot, but was able to
his mind was a razor.
Yeah, but was able to disseminate everything that he knew to be able to proclaim it in a way that the audience in which he was, in front of, could receive it well. Which is an art, right? I mean, this is an art. As that was happening, he had an excess tooth that grew in his mouth. That was.
What do you mean? As it was happening, like he's just speaking to one group of
No.
people?
Like as he was being known as this great oratory, a man who could speak well, right? Okay. A good preacher.
Okay.
Like he was becoming known.
As his reputation grew, so did a tooth.
So did a tooth. Yes. This excess tooth, and it impeded his speech terribly.
Okay.
And so St. Thomas just committed himself to divine providence and retreated to prayer and thought, well, this is just the Lord's will. Like, I don't want to get in front of everybody.
I can't speak well anymore.
Yeah. And so he says, if this is the case, then praise God.
Yeah.
This is his will, and so I won't speak anymore.
Okay.
So he refined himself, he retreated, he started praying, just studying and praying and studying and praying. As he was praying, all of a sudden, and he's absorbed in this prayer, he would get, you've heard JP2, being just absorbed into prayer. People would be like, "Hey, wake up!
We're done.
It's time to go."
Gotta go.
They're shaking the man to try to get him out of prayer.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the case with Aquinas too. He was just just consumed in prayer. And one of the guys was like, "Hey, we gotta go," and he's waking up, waking him out of this prayer. And this tooth, just came out of his mouth without any pain or any which obviously
it's unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual, and just landed
for adult teeth.
Right, and just landed it into his hand, and he took it as, okay, the Lord wants me to speak longer.
It was just a devil tooth.
Yeah,
the devil wanted you to stop.
And so, but he had not resigned to prayer. And said, blessed be the Lord, regardless of what he gives, whatever he gives me, blessed be the Lord. And he goes to prayer. Maybe that tooth would have stayed.
Who knows? Yeah. That's a weird story.
That's kind of a weird story.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to end on it.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird one.
It is kind of weird. But there it is.
I mean, I had never heard that story before.
No, I haven't heard it either.
So anyway, I think this book is really cool. Again, there's I
like the artwork on the front. I think that's
yeah. And there's 64.
Yeah, I like that.
There's 69. Yeah, I think it's 69 chapters, and they're all really short. A lot of them a page.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
A page and a half.
Yeah, that's.
And so it's really easy to go through. This is why
a fast read, really.
Yeah, it's a really fast read. This is why I had to tab it, because I was trying to figure, and I put notes on the front, because the one thing about it is the content, it doesn't tell you.
Table of contents, yeah.
Yeah, the table of contents is basically the foreword, the introduction,
the book,
and the appendix.
This is where the book is.
Yeah, and so I had to make my own kind of table of contents, but
that's so weird.
I really enjoyed it. Way to do it.
A strange way to publish it.
Yeah. And it was just it just made me fall deeper in love with our Lord, which ultimately, hopefully makes me fall deeper in love with Our Lady and in Christ.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, I learned some things. I learned a lot of things today.
Good.
Yeah.
We can't say that, in all honesty, after every episode.
No, not everyone,
So,
but many.
all right. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
Cheers.
Where's the tooth kept? Is it a relic somewhere?